And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, today we're going to be taking a look at Council of Blackthorn. Council of Blackthorn is a game from Great Northern Games, and in the theme of this, the king is on his deathbed, or he's old and he's feeble, and you are one of his on his council, and you kind of want to be the king when he passes away. You might be the queen, but you might be the guy who's in charge of the treasury. It doesn't matter. So you're going to use all the behind-the-scenes stuff that you can do to become the next king. So this game has a back and forth treachery, trying to say, hey, I saw him talking to a courtier there. It looked like treason to me. It's all about that, playing cards, trying to get influence to become the next king. Here's how it's played. In this game, players are going to get points. They're going to have a different faction. So you might be the Lord of the Tower, the Seventh Vigil, Master of Shadows, Minister of Coin, Lord of War, and Queen. And each of these has a special, some actions and maybe some special abilities and tokens that match your faction. At the end of the game, there are 4 different groups here that you're trying to get influence with. The guild, the noble, the peasants, and the legion. And depending on where your token is, that's how many points you will get. You will also, during the course of the game, be collecting all sorts of influence points. These will also be added to your score at the end of the game. And then finally, players, there is going to be different buildings that are going to be in play, and buildings are going to be worth a certain amount of points if you have them built by the end of the game. Now, at the beginning of each round, whoever the start player is going to roll these dice. These dice are going to be placed in each of these spots. This is going to show how much influence you can get in any particular spot. On a player's turn, they may first take one action. Now that action will likely be maybe here, like for example, here I can force an opponent to take a treason card. Here I can discard a poison card if I have one. Or here I can discard a peasant card and gain 1 level in any one faction. You can take one action. As the game goes by, some of the buildings that you put into play will also have actions on them that you can do. So you can take one action, then you're going to play a card. Players are going to have a handful of cards, and on your turn, you play a card from your hand. Most of the time, the card that you play will match one of these 4 factions here. When you play that card, you first look at the points on that faction. That's how far you will move, the points on the die. So if I'm the red player and I play a white peasant card, I'm going to go up 2. So you'll go up 1, 2, or 3, and there's even a blank side to each side. Now, if it's 1 or 2, you go up 1 or 2. If it's a 3, you will go up 3, but then you will also draw 2 treason cards. There's a whole deck here of treason cards, and treason cards have values in the back of them from 0 to 3 on them. If it's a 0, you're not going to go up at all, but you are going to get to give one of your treason cards to somebody else. They can pick an opponent, and your opponent will take one of your cards away from you. After you play the card and get those points, you then can activate the card. If it's a building, you can start building it. If it's an ally, you get to do the special action on the ally, but only if you have that much influence in the guild shown on the card. So for example, if I want to play this mystic here, I need to have at least a 3 on the noble track. So if I don't have a 3 on the noble track, whatever, I would take 2 points here, and that's the end of my turn. But if I did have 3 on the noble track, then I can also do the special ability here, which is give 2 of my treason cards to a target. If I have 4 here on the legion track over here, so if I was at least 4 or higher, then I can put this building in front of myself. At the beginning of my next turn, it's constructed. And then I have an action where I can re-roll one of the dice up to 3 times. And so there's all sorts of cards that go match all 4 factions, and they're mixed between buildings and allies. Allies are one-time use, and buildings are something you'll keep in front of you. There's also whispers. When you play a whispers card, you pick one of these that you're going to go up 1 level. Then each person who has the highest level in each one is going to score some points from those chips over there, and whoever has most buildings is going to score points. I'm sorry, they're not going to score points. They're going to each take treason cards. Sorry, they're going to take treason cards, whoever is the highest in each of the factions. So whispers is a way to kind of mess over other players. And what are these treason cards all about? Well, the game is going to end when 3 tokens, doesn't matter what player they are are locked at the number 13. There can only be one person on the 13 of each one. If you want to get to the 13 and someone's already there, you're going to have to use some sort of card to knock them out to get up there yourself. But at the end, when the 3 of these are here, the game will end after the end of that round, after each player has a chance to go, and we'll add up all our points. Starting with the player with the most points, each person's going to reveal all the different treason cards that they have, and whoever has the highest number is dead. Doesn't matter how many points you have, you're out of the game. So you might have the most points, but if you have the most treason, you are out of the game. So the player who does not get beheaded by the king, and then whoever has the most points, is the winner of the game. Now the game plays 2 to 6 players. To play with 2 players, you have to play with a ghost player, and I'm not really interested in that. So for me, the minimum player is 3. 6 players is a little too many. Not terrible, but you do wait a little longer for your turn to come around, and it's a little more chaotic. This game really kind of shines right in the middle with 4 players. 3 and 5 is not bad. 6 is a little too many. 2 is just go play a 2-player game. The artwork in the game I really like. I really like the look of the game. The components are fine. I like how there's the nice cardboard for the different player factions. There's a lot of these little influence tokens that are numbered from different 1, 2s, and 3s, and so you're constantly grabbing piles of those. And I guess you can keep them face down so no one knows how many you have. But many times you're moving these around because you're giving them back and forth a lot. Not the end of the world. At the end of your turn, if you are ahead in any of the factions or tie for being ahead in the faction, you get these. So it's your best interest to go out ahead. And that makes this game kind of fascinating to me because this is a kind of game where you don't want to be the obvious leader because there's a lot of cards that are like take that cards. There are cards where you can go after other players, giving treason cards to another player, having other opponents pay you for each building that they have. In fact, I'd say a lot of the faction, the Royal Guard and the attack cards will go after someone else. Basically, destroy 2 random cards in someone else's hand. Or target has to discard 2 Legion cards from their hand. And sometimes it says they discard a card unless they can block it with a specific card in their hand. So you always have to say, maybe I should keep a card of different types in my hand to block. So there is that kind of take that. And if you're like, I am winning, people will be like, well, that's only briefly, and they'll slap you down. So there is kind of that, don't get too far ahead. But because the game gives you points at the end of the turn for being ahead, it's a desirable thing to do. It's like, well, I don't want to show everyone I'm winning, but at the same time, give me my points, please. So there's a lot of different points, and those points you get at the end of the turn can be deceptive. You're like, whatever. You're like watching the tracks, but if you get 2, 3, 4 points every turn for having the most buildings or being ahead in the different tracks, those points can add up. And even buildings themselves, you get those buildings out, you can score a lot of points at the end of the game. And it's rare. I think the games I played at this, it's not always evident who's won. You can see who's ahead in the tracks, like, well, Tom's obviously winning on the tracks. Yeah, but I didn't get any points here, and I didn't get as many buildings. And that's not even mentioning the whole treason card mechanism. Now, this isn't new to this game. There are other games that have this whole corruption thing, and whoever has the most corruption loses at the end of the game. But it's always a mechanism that pleases me, because you sit there and go, well, this is really good. And this die mechanism, where if you move up 3, you get 2 of those cards, that's really tempting to go up 3. And sometimes you'll say, I don't care if I get some corruption cards. Besides, Susan took some corruption cards, and I'm pretty sure I have less than her. Maybe I can give these away later with a Whispers card or something. And so I like that concept of the game, and it works well. And besides, a lot of the cards are 0. I might have 20 cards in my hand, but if 10 of them are 0s, and then different people have ways to negate certain of those treason cards, it's a good, solid mechanism. Again, nothing new, but works well, and especially helps the theming of this game. The game is really not that long, and it's pretty simple. You roll the dice, you look, people groan at the different rolls that are on the dice, you play cards. Where this game is unique is that when you play a card to move up in one spot, you then always look at another track, and it's usually the one that's immediately to your right or the one across, and you see how far you are on that track, and then the card will also have some sort of benefit. So increasing really far in one track is good point-wise, but not good to play cards. You need to increase in multiple tracks. And then the cards that you need to activate, let's say you need red cards to activate white cards. The white track isn't used to activate red usually on the other side. So there's not this back and forth. It's usually kind of a good circular pattern there where you kind of need to increase in everything. And I enjoy that. There's a whole lot of different cards. There's all sorts of points flying around. There is a bit of take that. There is a bit of chaos. But at the end of the day, I think the theme comes through strongly. The game does not overstay its welcome. And there's just a good back and forth card play and moving up on the tracks. I've played games of this style before. This is one of the best. I do enjoy it. Check it out. Council of Blackthorn. Dice Tower Judgment, approved.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Do